Hey guys, that's your Racial Legends. Welcome to the video. Sending some love, some positive vibes your way, especially if you need them out there today. Guys, so Christmas morning, I wake up at 6 a.m. because my kid is jumping on me. So I go downstairs, we're opening up gifts, and here I am, 6 a.m. What did my son get for me? My favorite candy, Sour Patch Kids. So I pop me some Sour Patch Kids up. You know, I'm a normal human being. I don't eat just one at a time. I shove like 10 of these bad boys in my mouth, and I'm chewing. And wouldn't you know, TMI here, but a piece of my tooth falls out. That's how you know you're getting old, right? It's like an old filling or something. Anyway, now my tongue is like, every time I talk, basically, it kills. So I'm going to try to power through for you guys in the name of Teleria Raid Shadow Legends. But golly, it kills. I had to go to like a convenience store and put some like braces stuff, like wax on my teeth. So I feel like I can't talk. So if I'm slurring my words, it's not too much eggnog. Your boy just has a Sour Patch tooth decay breaking issue. Anyway, today I want to talk about the big three in the arena right now. The three champions that truly define this meta. And I'm gonna be real with you guys. These champions, at one point or another, were all free. So I'm talking about a fusion or a champion that somehow you can get for free. You know, I've talked about this in the past too. But sometimes there's this weird stigma in this game, at least amongst us pay-to-winners, right? Where a champion that's free, I'll probably just keep pounding away with mythical champions, right? Fully empowered, fully awakened mythicals, no big deal, right? No big deal. Because I think that psychologically, at least for me, sometimes, it's almost like a subconscious type thing. It's like, dude, I got this champion. I defied the odds, the RNG odds, and I got this mythical champion. I want to use him, damn it, right? But the truth is, for me, in live arena, I play a lot of live arena, man. I've been loving it lately. I'm creeping up on 20,000 live arena points. How much do you guys play, first of all? And if so, what are your points right now in the game? What is your biggest pain point of live arena? What do you want to see, especially if you don't play it a lot? What do you want to see Plarium go in and adjust for you to play it more? I still want like different sorts of leagues within live arena, not just a season thing, but actually like, you know, I still want all epics, all force, all whatever. I want them to have different varieties. That's just me. But anyway, you can see my stats, especially considering my account, aren't that great. And the truth is, what am I right now? 2,000 in the world, right? But these guys, I mean, 38,000 battles won. I thought I was no-lifing it at 5,600. But let me tell you a little story about my live arena, especially my season arena. So last season, I really started to hit what I thought was my stride in live arena, right? And this applies to all PvP, not just live arena. But I made a big adjustment in last season. So I only played 223 battles. It was a little bit low for me during the seasons, but I just wanted to get my mats and that was it and walk away. Had a lot going on prepping for the holidays and whatnot. That all being said though, I made a big adjustment, right? I started drafting 3 specific champions. And the irony here on these 3 specific champions that define the meta is they all counter each other, you know, either a hard counter or a soft counter, and we'll talk about it. I started using these more free, accessible champions, right? And the more I used them, the more I won. For 2 reasons. Number 1, all 3 of these champions are absolutely phenomenal, right? Number 2 is it prevented my opponents from drafting these damn champions and me having to ban them every single time. And I guess, yeah, those are the number 2. Those are the number 1 and the number 2 reasons. I was like, number 3, I love them. Number 4, I love them a really lot. And the champions are, without any further ado, is Lord Entertainer Fabian. Listen, Fabian has passed up Armand's in the meta. Not to say that Armand still isn't, you know, you can make a case he's number 4 or whatever, right? He's right up there. But nobody is dominating this meta like Lord Entertainer Fabian, a previous Fusion champion. What I'm going to do, by the way, in this video, after I introduce the 3 meta champions, is I'm going to share some tips, some best options for relics, blessings, depending on how much your awakening is on these champions, as well as going over my masteries, and I'll even play a live arena match or 2 at the end of the video. Fabian counters champion number 2, Marius, okay? So Marius the Gallant, surprise, surprise, he's still on top, right? Marius is just insane. Marius might be the best thing that they've ever done in Raid Shadow Legends because unlike Fabian and unlike the 3rd champion that I'm about to talk about here, Marius is S tier everywhere in the game. Not just in the arena where he can single-handedly negate or better, more appropriate, delete Stone Skin. He's tough to deal with, and he is a counter to the one weakness of Fabian, which is mythical champions. Because obviously, you know, so Marius can counter, I don't know, maybe an Embyrs. And Embyrs, wouldn't you know, is one of the best soft counters to a Fabian. Because, of course, Embyrs can just switch forms and dominate on his second form, where he's absolutely insane as well. But then again, Marius can counter Embyrs a bit to prevent him from switching forms, which you really want to do. And if you're going against Embyrs, I'm sure we've all been there. It's like that ticking time bomb where we want to kill Embyrs, or at least control him before he switches to that lethal second form. So these are the three big champions right now in the meta, all for their very own reasons, all for their unique reasons. But, listen, there's a lot of other good champions. Star Sage, Nice, Marichka. These are by far and away not the only meta champions. But to me, these are the three that I started playing more and more and more earlier in my drafts. And wouldn't you know, go figure, I started winning a hell of a lot more, even over some of my OP champions, right, that I have on my account, like Cometus's and Lazarius's and the Cock and Allah's and Siegfried. Not to say that they're better than all those champions, but the truth of the matter is this game, there's a meta inside the meta, especially in PvP. You have to be selective with who you're going with to counter, obviously, what your opponent drafts. Now, I'm not going to get into all of that counterplay in today's video. For example, a champion like Night Queen Crixia, if you have her, you could draft her to counter a Fabian, right? So there's always a counter to a counter, then a counter to that counter, which is why I love PvP so much. Anyway, I digress. Let's talk about these three champions briefly, talk about their very best builds, in my opinion, some options for you guys out there, because obviously I'm on a very endgame account, but a lot of these principles, kind of these staples of these champion builds will pertain to all of you guys. So here we go. Let's start with Fabian, man. Lord, man, there's a lot of lords, huh? Golly. I didn't realize. Hive Lord, we've got a Lord Shazar, a Tomb Lord, a War Lord, a Lord Champfort, Skull Lord, Hackhorn Smash Lord. Hey, we need a Lord tier list, said nobody. We even got a Vermin Lord. All right, back to Fabian. I mean, there's nobody in this game like Fabian, right? You go in there, this is polymorph proof, this ability here. You go in there before attacking, you have a 100% chance of decreasing the duration of all enemy buffs by 3 turns. Decreased duration of enemy buffs, especially for new players out there, that will not get you polymorphed. It has to be remove buffs to get polymorphed. Grant an extra turn if there are no buffs on the enemy team before the attack. That's a sneaky little move too. You can reset if there are no buffs, especially mid-match, and get that extra turn. Sometimes, back before I played Fabian all the time, I forgot about that part. I'm just going to be real with you guys. And I'm like, what are they running him in Relentless? I forgot that he has that extra turn, right? And then also has a 100% chance of increasing the cooldown of all enemy skills by 3 turns. Super freaking strong, obviously. 4-turn cooldown too. But then he has this nasty petrification, the True Fear, and then again activates the skill whenever an enemy under Fear or True Fear successfully uses a skill. He becomes a True Fear machine. This little fella, Lord Entertainer Fabian. Fabian can just totally change the dynamics of a match, and he can be one of the most frustrating champions to go against in the entire game because of how many fears and true fears and petrifications that he's dishing out between putting all your skills on cooldown and removing all of your buffs. And then whenever anybody's revived, to get the true fear on them. And then for me, what puts him over the top as one of, if not the best control champions, I'll just say it, the best control champion in the game, is this. Removes CC debuffs outside of Sheep from this champion before the start of their turn. So you can't even CC him. In this incredibly freeze-heavy meta, I'm seeing more and more Sir Nicks. I'm starting to see more and more Lady Noels, obviously Hilvies and Tormans. We don't have to worry about that, right? We don't have to worry about freeze and all the rest of them at the same time. Man, that's nasty. That is nasty. So what do we want to do with Fabian? Obviously, in a perfect world, when we're playing Fabian, we want the opponent to actually go first, but it's no big deal if we go first too. So we want him fast, right? We want him fast with a hell of a lot of accuracy. So we want Fabian to go first or go after, ideally, go after the enemy team buffs up. Hopefully not like a Siffy, because those buffs are likely going to be protected. But, in most scenarios, we want to go in with Fabian right after the opponent goes with maybe an Arbias or an Arbiter, gets a few buffs up, and then boom, we take him back and we neutralize everybody outside of Mythicals on the enemy team. Really, really strong. Thus, I love going with Temporal Chains on a 6-star on this champion. However, I will say that even a 5-star, right, is pretty powerful in terms of reduces enemy speed by 5% for each active buff, up to 15%. At 6, you get the instant decrease the turn meter of all enemies by 15% whenever an enemy receives a third active buff, plus the minus 5% speed for each buff they're under. This is one of the most disgustingly powerful blessings in the entire game at 5 and especially 6 stars, okay? If I go against a Lord Entertainer Fabian and he doesn't have a Temporal Chains at a 6-star, I consider it a win personally. But the other option, in my opinion, would be, and this is probably by far the second most popular choice for Fabian at 6 stars, is Intimidating Presence, right? At 5 or 6 stars, especially 6. He does have the speed aura, so of course, it makes a lot of sense to go ahead and use him in that regard as well. Now, if you don't have him at 6 stars or 5 stars, I'd probably just go Polymorph, because we're building him with a lot of accuracy anyway, so we don't really care that it's irresistible as much as we would on other champions, so I'd probably go Polymorph. That's where my head's at when it comes to blessings on Fabian. When it comes to the relic on Fabian, I think the top 2 relics are Wand of Submission, which is like just basically a go-to on this champion. And I think I'm not sure if I have any non-equipped right now, but I think a sneaky second choice for Fabian, and a really good one at that, is let me just go to my damn rarity here. Too many relics here. I don't sell relics like I should, guys, as you guys can see. But here it is. It's a clan, the Temporal Stagnator, okay? Where has a 20% chance to remove, steal, or convert buffs, or increase a skill's cooldown when landing a weak hit. This was practically made for Fabian's A3 ability, right? Because it's going to help us remove buffs and increase skills cooldown on weak hits. Very powerful if you don't have Wand of Submission, and we can easily get that to level, not easily, but I guess everything's relative, but we can get it up to 35% chance at level 4, which is fairly, manageable for a lot of players, getting it to level 12. So I love this Temporal Stagnator as a second option behind the Wand of Submission on Fabian. Okay, so we talked a little bit about his blessing and his relic. Let's talk about the gear. I am never, ever, under any circumstance, personally, running a Lord Entertainer Fabian without a 4-piece supersonic on him, right? Because of what we just talked about. Fills his champion's turn meter by 2% for each buff on each enemy. So that can quickly jack up his turn meter, especially in conjunction with Temporal Chains. And we're going to cut that line. We're going to put everything on cooldown and remove all of their non-protected buffs at the same time, thus neutralizing the enemy, the opponent. I get asked this a lot in the comments. I want to answer once definitively. Temporal Chains does not stack. Meaning, if I have 2 or 3 Temporal Chains champions on my team and the enemy team launches a Sifigos, 3 buffs, let's just pretend they're unprotected, not that it really matters, right? It's not like we're going to get their speed reduced to like 45% or anything like that, or get a massive 30 or 45% turn meter decrease depending on if I have a few champions on my team with Temporal Chains. I say that because I do see some players running 2 Temporal Chains together at times in Classic Arena, and I'm not sure if they realize that they do not stack. Temporal Chains, in terms of the way that the blessing works, it's like a universal debuff that the entire team has won, and they don't stack up. Masteries basically went down, picked up more accuracy with Eagle Eye, right? I do like his A1 as well, so I picked up Retribution and Deterrence. I don't need Lore of Steel here, but those are the pretty self-explanatory there in terms of the blessings. I already talked about Supersonic. It's super powerful. I also like Pinpoint. Now, you could go 4-piece Supersonic with 4-piece Stone Skin instead, but I personally like the 4-piece Pinpoint and the 4-piece Supersonic if you have a Temporal Chains on him, right? Because usually you're going to end up going first or second. You'll either be the first champion to go after your speed booster maybe, or you're going to wait till the enemy team gets buffed, have Supersonic and Temporal Chains, jack up your turn meter, and then you're going to go. If you don't have a High Awakening on him, and maybe you don't have good Supersonic gear, you could just go Stone Skin and Perception, something pretty basic like that, especially in the early to mid game. All right, so that's Fabian, man. So my total stats on my Fabian, this is my main gear, my main Fabian, 400 speed, but again, it can be deceptive. He can get a lot faster with a Supersonic Temporal, and then I have him at 781 accuracy. That's all that really matters, speed and accuracy. Obviously, survival is nice too, but there it is. That's Fabian, and he is a one-man controller like no other in the game. And it's crazy too, because Armand's is so good. I didn't mean to knock him earlier, but to me, he's not like Fabian. Not right now, not in this meta. However, Armand's is better generally against mythical champions. All right, let's go to Marius. Now let's go to Embyrs. Embyrs is so nasty, man. He is so nasty, this guy, dude. It's tough because ultimately, when you talk about arena, sure, we have gear presets in the game right now, right? But you have to build quite a few champions because, especially in live arena, you need to draft. And even in classic arena, you do want to match and counter what the defensive team is doing. So you can't just use your very best gear on every single champion. You have to have them all built. So you have to make tough decisions, especially if you've been playing a game a long time and you have a lot of champions. So for me, I try to really start relying on Embyrs, Marius. I still have my Taurus built to go with Marichka. I still think he's underrated actually with Marichka right now. But who am I going? I'm going with Gallius. And I'm trying to think, is that all I am running for really strong HP or defense-based damage dealers right now? I have others built. I have Polara built. I have Alas built, but not in good gear, you know? So I've tried to refine, and what I'm trying to tell you guys is I've tried to refine my damage dealers into, trying to narrow it down a little bit more than I previously did. Now, there might be a few others. Obviously, I'm still running some Gizmak and Cometus, and sorry for just picking mythicals. They're just the first on my list here. I'm still running a lot of champions, but I'm trying to, say I can't gear everybody in the best gear. All right, Embyrs the Anomaly, man, this dude. I'll be real with you guys. To my previous point, I stopped using Embyrs as much. I was using, other champions, mythicals mainly, but then I went back to Embyrs, and as soon as I did, I just started winning a hell of a lot more. Embyrs is one of those champions, I'm sure you've been there too. If you have Embyrs, if you use Embyrs, which I hope most of you do if you have them, right? But he's one of those champions that your whole team can be wiped out, and he can just solo you win them. He can just solo the rest, right? Between his Necrosis, which is so nasty, especially as it gets stacking and stacking and stacking. But obviously, yeah, he has a stone skin removal. You got to be careful with the Void Stare, especially with Polymorph. Sometimes it's better not to use it. Sometimes it's better just to open up and go right into his alternate form, right? You got to realize also his alternate form is not the end of the world, but it's significantly slower than his base form, but it makes up for it by having more HP, which is obviously his damage scaling stat. How about his active effect, where he revives himself and reflects all that damage back, usually killing somebody, thus putting more necrosis stacks on the enemy team? Let's talk about probably the biggest threat of all of Embyrs, his freaking Unmaker's Blade, his A1 ability. I have nightmares about this ability, right? I have nightmares about this Unmaker's Blade because honestly, his whole kit is just lethal, very strong, especially on his alternate form. But this A1, there's nothing like it, especially if somebody's already dead, so you can get the 2 hits because there's a necrosis stack in the battle because it's block revive. Of course, Embyrs does have 2 sources of damage, HP and accuracy, but you don't want to build any accuracy on Embyrs. It's better to get the double damage. Even though you get a little bit more oomph with accuracy on the A1, I found that extra damage, or ignore 50% of enemies' defense, I find that more valuable on the A2 because Atomize can absolutely just decimate everybody. Your life is forfeit. Listen, this move, I used to, right when I got my Embyrs, I used to open up, I used to switch forms, sometimes Void Stare, then I would switch forms, and then I would open up with your life is forfeit. Basically, I would swap HP just to get the ignore defense up by 10%, right? Which is really powerful, man. I mean, I'm already running him in lethal gear as is with Helm Smasher, so I'm rocking potentially 60% ignore defense. That's insane. But not in every situation is a little bit different, but henceforth, I made a change. Now I'm opening up, if I have an easy target, if I can kill their nuker and they only have 1 or something, I'm just going to go in with the A1, forget everything else, right? Block revive, right? But oftentimes, I just lead with Atomize right away for 2 reasons. Number 1 is I can get back to Atomize in 2 turns instead of 3 if I take the extra turn ability, or yeah, exactly, 2 turns instead of 3. If I take this ability on the next move instead, right? I can cycle because it grants an extra turn. But the other reason is if somebody hits him, decently hard in between when we open up with Atomize in his next turn, it's a beautiful opportunity to swap HP, which does not require accuracy. And then you can kill him with the A1. And then the next turn, your atomized off cooldown again. Really strong synergy on that A3 and the A1 and an extra turn, block revive, you name it. All right, so we know he's a beast. I went with Lightning Cage on my Embyrs the Anomaly. Of course, he does have Stone Skin. We really want one thing on Embyrs. We want him to take a turn. Right? Because we talked about this earlier. But the one time Embyrs is most vulnerable is before he takes his first turn and before he switches into his alternate form. So we got to protect that Stone Skin. So Lightning Cage is by far the most popular blessing on Embyrs. But if you want another option on Embyrs, I would go with Life Harvest. Okay? Life Harvest is very nasty as a sneaky option on Embyrs. Why? Because how do you counter Embyrs? First of all, you kind of don't. He's so powerful, right? Granted, block damage, does the job. But you need to revive. Because reviving in Stone Skin, placing Stone Skin buffs, like Leo and our bias, right, are the only things that remove necrosis stacks. And necrosis stacks are lethal because they do a hell of a lot of damage, and he can get the double hit when they exist on the battlefield with his A1. So enemies want to remove it as quickly as possible. Thus, they want to revive as quickly as possible. So what's the best blessing to counter revive? Obviously, it's Life Harvest. So every time, if you have it at 6 stars, right? Every time an enemy is revived, you cut their HP by almost half. Destroys enemies' max HP by 40% when they're revived. Moreover, you fill 30% of this champion's turn meter on every revive. And again, players are obviously naturally going to be wanting to revive a lot on Embyrs. Beautiful, beautiful. Even at 5 stars, 30% HP reduction, 20% turn meter fill. Even at 3, 20% turn meter, 10% turn meter fill. I mean, this is a very underrated blessing. I've mentioned it many, many times here on the channel before, but I think Life Harvest would be my second option. My third would probably be Soul Reap for Embyrs the Anomaly. Masteries, kept it pretty simple. We don't want accuracy, so I kept it on the defense and the offense. These are the masteries that I am rocking on my Embyrs the Anomaly. However, I will say, now that I look at them, I think I would actually, this is tough, right? Because when we look at methodical, deterrence, and retribution, vice versa, you guys get what I'm saying, right? When we look at those 3 masteries on the tier 5 levels, they're all about maximizing the prowess of his A1 ability, which is one of the highlights of his kit, right? I love the idea of increasing the damage up to 10%. That's pretty nasty. But I also love the idea of just counterattacking with retribution or deterrence. So I guess I stand by my choices here, but you do want to get some value in this tier 5 out of his A1 vis-a-vis counterattacks. I have Ruthless Ambush on him. I have Opportunist on him as well. I have Cycle of Violence, certainly can proc it very easily. I stayed away from, obviously, the left-hand side of the offensive tree because he's going to have more HP most times than the enemies. Talking about the rest of the build here, Wand of Submission, for me, it's the way to go. Outside Mythical, I'm not giving Mythical recommendations because I think that you guys, if you have Mythicals, you probably know they're pretty good. But of course, you go with Cat's Gaze as well on Embyrs if you have a few of them. I have 2 and they're on Titus and Siegfried. I'm not going to move them on my account, but I think that Wand is very good generally on anybody, including Embyrs the Anomaly. Stars of Jiajing or Jianeng or whatever the hell it is, very good as well. Embyrs, when we're building him, we want him in Stone Skin and Lethal, Stone Skin and Savage, right? It's as easy as that. You could consider maybe Mercurial if you wanted to, but for me, now we'll go Stone Skin, Lightning Cage, thank you very much. To me, it's the safe choice, it's the best choice for Embyrs. Pretty simple. That being said, the fundamentals here. We don't want any accuracy. I have 175 on my build. That's fine. By the way, this is his base form. He's at 293 speed, but when we switch to his alternate form, he's at 287 speed, but his HP goes up significantly, 117k. So when we're building Embyrs, we want, in terms of stat priorities, 100% crit rate, and then as much speed, HP, and crit damage as we can get. Okay, this is an endgame build, so my priority, I think I mentioned this in a previous video, and people got on me about it in the comments, but, I'm just trying to be real with you guys, too. I said that I build my nukers as close to 300 speed as I humanly can, and a lot of people in the comments were like, yeah, whatever, you're unrelatable and out of touch. I'm like, dude, I'm just like, I'm an endgame player. You should still take that nugget and try to build your nukers to be faster. Some of you who might be trying to get by with slow nukers out there. And again, that doesn't apply to every champion in the game, but just generally, I'm trying to quicken up my nukers. At the very least, you don't want to give your opponents too many ample opportunities to cut in line and go ahead of your nukers after your turn meter boosters, right? So just make sure your speeds align in that respect. Talked about priorities, talked about builds. He's a fairly, I don't want to say easy champion to build, but you know what you need, right? You know what you need, and you don't need accuracy, which is nice. So I do have HP on the banner. I have crit damage on the amulet. I have HP on the chest. I have speed on the boots, and I have crit damage on the gauntlets. Let's move on over to Marius. I mean, nobody really counters Embyrs, really, but Marius can be a counter, a viable kind of triangle. So when we put this all together, before we get into Marius, when we're drafting in the arena, right? What I tend to do is, with my first pick, I don't go with any of these three champions, even after I told you guys, for my first pick in Live Arena, even after I just told you guys that they're the best three champions that define the meta, because I like to react. I don't want to give my opponent the ability to react to me. If I go Fabian, they could just draft all mythicals. If I could go Marius, they could plan on banning him and work around, or they could go with no mythical strategy, or they could go with a Fabian to lock out Marius, right? So I like reacting, not being the one to pick a bold play that people know how to react to, okay? So thus, I always open up with a easy, safe support pick, like a Marichka or a Galathir, whoever you have, right? A support champion, a revive or something like that, because those, you know, you can't really, and then for the most part, you can't really counter them, right? I'm sure you can react to them, but they're a support, they're a reviver, they're a cleanser. So Marius is still one of the best answers we have to mythical champions in the game, really for a couple reasons. Obviously, he's gonna auto with his Auric Lance, his A1 ability when they switch forms, which is just so powerful. It's an AoE attack, and it has that enfeeble as well. Ooh, that's nasty. So even if you don't kill them, you might enfeeble them, right? And enfeeble, you can get that chance up from 50 to 55 with Sniper as well. Keep in mind the Sniper Mastery, Tier 5 Support Mastery, it does work with enfeeble, so does Master Hexter, so it can be extended as well. I don't build my Marius with the support tree, but it is worth noting, again, that enfeeble, it will work Sniper and Master Hexter, which if you are going support, it would behoove you to choose those masteries. All right, so back to Marius. I have accuracy on the banner. I have crit damage on his amulet. I have defense on his ring. I have speed on his boots. What is going on over here? Am I out of chaos ore? I had to swap out my my chess piece recently. We really want defense. Marius, I'm going to be real with you guys. There's only one knock on him, and it's barely we got it on our last Chaos Dust, too. There's only one knock on Marius, and that is he's kind of tough to build. I'm going with a 6-star. Okay, we'll take it. Because we want a lot more than we did on the other champions we spoke about. We want speed, we want defense, we want crit rate, we want crit damage, and we want accuracy. His saving grace is his A3 ability, though. His A3 ability, he brings his own increased accuracy and increased defense, as well as a stun that you have to be careful of vis-a-vis polymorph, right? As well as a stun on the enemy with the highest turn meter for 1 turn. You should, when going into a match with Marius, just try to take a mental note on who has polymorph on the enemy's team, right? That way, if they have the highest turn meter, you might want to forego going in with Galloping Thunder first and go right into Death or Glory, thus not incurring a potential sheep polymorph on Marius because they have the highest turn meter, okay? Super simple again. Stone Skin lethal, just like Embyrs, only defense instead of HP as a damage source priority, right? So Stone Skin lethal, Stone Skin Savage, both work just absolutely beautifully. That's the best build for Marius in the arena. You can entertain Slayer for PvE, but personally, I run this everywhere in PvE, and I am thrilled with the damage and all the results. I like having my Marius as fast as possible, just like everybody else. I've already made that point. I'm not going to repeat it. 100% crit rate is going to be imperative on this champion, and then 276 crit damage. I have 6,700 on the defense and 425 on the accuracy, which again is going to be increased by around 200 or so, which is generally enough, but but not against like Star Sages and really high resistance enemies, maybe like a Pythion out there. You might have to be careful. I'm not always going to get the reduction on the death or glory ability. Whenever an enemy changes form or attempts to decrease this champion's turn meter, counterattacks using this champion's default skill. This neutralizes Lazarius's and Shuzen's and any A1 that steals turn meter or anything like that. You have to be careful with temporal chains as well, because again, a decreased champion's turn meter will proc an AoE from Marius on his Auric Lance. So you do have to be very, very careful of Marius. Be very careful of all the different ways. Even, for example, a Evil Eye. Decrease target's turn meter when this champion hits them with the default skill for the first time. These are ways that when you're going against Marius, you do have to be very careful and cognizant of all the unorthodox ways that we can reduce turn meter in this game, right? Wand of Submission, surprise, surprise. Cat's Gaze would be my second choice for Marius the Gallant, but I love the wand. Now for blessings, we do have a few options for blessings on Marius. I see people mainly go with Cruelty, Crushing Rend, or Soul Reap, okay? I like Crushing Rend at 6 stars, even in the arena, but because it costs us a bunch of gems to be switching around our blessings all the time, I still run Crushing Rend, obviously in PvE, where it's extremely beneficial, especially in wave content, but really in any content, because the levels are so high. But I keep Crushing Rend even for the arena, because Marius hits very, very hard, but we can use every amount of extra damage that we can get on Marius. So I'll take the Crushing Rend, even though it's only an additional 6% ignore defense. It does, ignore defense is the strongest move in this game in terms of escalating your damage against the opponent, so I will take it. You could even go Polymorph if you wanted to on Marius, especially if you're building him with enough accuracy. If you're not 6 stars, is another option. But I think, again, Cruelty, especially in PvE, is very good. He has all those AoEs. You're going to get that decreased defense in no time on Cruelty. So it is a very viable option. In the arena, though, I do like Crushing Rend and Soul Reap a bit better. If I didn't go Crushing Rend, I would go Soul Reap, because Soul Reap, in about 6 stars, that's a very high HP threshold at 20%. And if they survive, you get a True Fear as well. It's really powerful at 5 and 6 stars, especially on Soul Reap. So those would be my considerations. I just showed you my masteries on Marius, but here they are again. Getting those counterattacks again, with the Retribution, with the deterrence. And again, you can see I made that same decision that I made on Embyrs. Basically, this is almost a mirror image of Embyrs masteries here on my Marius. But yeah, this is my favorite build on Marius the Gallant. Again, nothing wrong with foregoing the defense tree and going support tree, ending up with Sniper and Master Hexer as well. All right, guys, so I promised you a little bit of live arena. We're going against Shiny Star 19, only 5,600 trophies, so hopefully it's a good matchup here. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. I was going to make an individual video on all of these champions, but I thought, you know what? They're all like defining the meta. As you can see, Fabian picked first. I don't like Fabian picked first, though. I don't mind Embyrs. He's a little tougher to deal with, or even a Marius. I don't love Fabian because we can get around him. So we're just going to go mythical heavy. I apologize. We're going to go with Embyrs and Star Sage Gallant, which is exactly what I would do even if I wasn't filming, right? So this is how I'd react to that draft pick. Marius is still available, who would be very good for him to draft against me now that I've led off with 2 mythicals. I generally stay base form with Star Sage Gallant, the way that I play him, but not all the time, obviously. We could obviously ban Fabian if we wanted to, but we need more info. He's going to go with Tormund, probably Hilvi, in an Armand's team. So I'm actually going to go with Marichka, because I have to start thinking about my speed auras. So I'm going to go Marichka and Lazarius, who's the fastest champion on my account, and a turn meter booster. It's tempting to go Marius, but he has no mythicals here, and I still feel pretty strong, and I could still go Marius last pick because I have my 2 speed auras already selected. I have my support champions already selected in Star Sage and Marichka, and I have my offensive threats in Embyrs and Lazarius, so I can just purely react to what he's going to do here. So I am going to go Marius, damn it, because it's his spotlight video anyway, and there's a lot of buffs that I need removed here on this team. But I'm going to have to ban my Fabian, unfortunately, and keep Noel and Sir Nick together. I'm surprised he didn't go Hilvi, though. Or she? I don't know. I'm surprised they didn't go Hilvi. I'll come back to you guys when we get in the match. All right, guys, they banned my Lazarius, so I'm going to go with Marichka as my lead and hope that I'm fast enough to go first over Armand's on their team. And we do go first. My Star Sage Gallant isn't that fast, so I'm going to turn meter boost with And look at that freeze right back on Tormund. I love that. I didn't notice. I should have looked, but I didn't, to see who had Polymorph on their team. So shame on me. We're going to open up right up with Atomize. And we killed 2 of them right out the gate. And now, I mean, I'm just going to go right in with a Death or Glory and get rid of his Reviver. So he's already in a very, very bad spot here. So this one's pretty much over. Let's go ahead and do one more here, guys. I'm actually going to be pretty aggressive and just try to end this one. And there he goes. They quit the match. Let's go into the next match. All right, guys. Stormy Rider. Jinx stands for Jinx. There it is. I usually don't play during this time slot here, midday. But he starts with Embyrs. So, I mean, hell, we're going to go with 1-2. Marius and Star Sage. So you can see Embyrs, Fabian first picked the first match. Embyrs first picked the second match. Ah, man. I really wish they would add a mythical wish list, right? To the Soul Stones. I wish they would add a slot in the shop too, but at least a wish list, you know? And a slot, damn it. All right, they go Rhodos, my favorite nuker, and they go with Odin. Interesting. We're just going to go speed again, and we're going to go with, we're going to go with Gallius, right? We're going to go Gallius. A good little Rhodos counter. Not full counter. Nobody full counters Rhodos. So they have a 6-star Crushing Rend Rhodos, a 6-star Intimidating Presence Odin, and a non-awakened. And they go Cometus, and they go Raka. Interesting, interesting. We're going to go with Marichka again. Marichka again. I have a nice tanky team. And golly, who do I want to ban here? I think I want to ban Rhodos, actually. You know what? Even though I have a lot of power to withstand Rhodos, he has single-handedly effed me over so many times in the past that I have a healthy fear and appreciation for this champion. I know that Cometus, I can probably circumvent. I have 2 block debuffs champions on my team, even though he has buff removal. I'm not really worried about that. So anyway, let's go ahead and here. Look at their turn meters. They're fairly low. So I'm just going to go right in with the A2, try to remove some buffs, and we do a good job of that. I'm going to get an extra turn. Of course, I run my Star Sage Gallant here in Relentless gear. Now we're going to go ahead and buff up. I'm actually going to go ahead and keep the cock. Nah, I'm not going to keep the cock. I'm going to switch forms. I like keeping the, I want to wait an hour. I'm in the middle of recording. All right. We're going to use his base form, try to reduce some of that duration. Let's go in, Galloping Thunder, get that extra accuracy, and we don't get the kills there, but it's okay. We're going to switch forms with Lazarius, and we're going to go ahead and pop off. We do have block debuffs on everybody, so we're just going to pop off the Reviver there because he can't really do much here. He can switch forms and land a bomb? It's not going to do anything, right? And again, switch forms, sometimes we land that in Feeble and it's already game over there, right? But man, listen, we can probably end the video here, but hopefully I've given you guys some motivation when it comes to using these 3 all-star studs. You probably already were, but hopefully you can make an adjustment or two to some of these builds, maybe tweak things a little bit, and maybe allocate some of your very best gear to these champions, because I promise you, they're freaking worth it. Guys, thanks so much for watching the video till the end. Much love, and as always, take care, guys.
From dusk till dawn, I turn my speakers on. Why they wanna play with the king? I told them meet LeBron. There's darkness in my city, wrong moves, and you won't see the sun. They be talking loud, but never been where the creatures hunt.